Minnesota in probably 20 years.
Bring gas. Welcome to Flagrant Howls, a Minnesota Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.
Well, that got feisty last night at Target Center.
Loved it.
Holy cow. A lot to discuss within the framework of State of the Wolves here. But a shout out to start the show here to our friend Heather, Wolves Realtor, Dex.
Yes. So let's say you're looking to buy a home, but also you want some free Wolves tickets too. How about that? You can register to win 2 free lower level tickets to the Wolves Nets game on Friday, April 11th. Plus, everyone who registers gets a Wolves logo magnet as well for the fridge. So you can go to wolvesrealtor.com, sign up for a chance to win those tickets. Plus, for any of those real estate needs, buying a house, selling a house, it's a complicated process. Luckily, Heather is here to help you out. You can go to wolvesrealtor.com. She's a loyal season ticket holder. Go to wolvesrealtor.com for those free tickets and for any of those real estate needs.
All right, dudes, let's get into Dex has the overview here, and then we'll get into the various categories, and we can sprinkle our big picture and last night's thoughts into State of the Wolves here, Flagrant Howls.
Alrighty, so the Wolves are 43-32 on the season. They remain 7th in the Western Conference. However, half game up on the 8th seed, half game back of the 6th seed, so they're still flirting with hopefully maybe getting out of that play-in situation. They are 9th in offensive rating. They're 6th in defensive rating. Some updated playoff odds here. 89% chance. That's up from 84% via ESPN.com. And they're at 93% on Basketball Reference to also both be playoff teams this season. 0.2% chance to win the LOB according to ESPN. A 1.1% on Basketball Reference. And again, if the playoffs started today, the Wolves would host the Clippers. That's pretty much been the case for the last 3 weeks. Again, assuming if the playoffs started the day after the State of the Wolves episodes, that we do. So that's a little bit of the overview. What are the vibes right now after Holyfield versus Tyson took place yesterday at the Target Center?
Well, the vibes are outstanding. I love the vibes because they are one word. They're feisty. They're feisty. And I'm going to tell you right now, I loved last night's game. I loved it, and here's why. The Pistons, who are a good team, so the Pistons are not a joke. The Pistons are a good team. They came in here, and they were going to do two things. They were going to shoot the lights out, and they were going to literally kick your ass. And the Wolves at first said, Malik Beasley, we can't stop you, but we can stop your team from kicking our ass. And while I fear that DiVincenzo or Reed could be suspended for a few games because they were kicked out last night, what I loved about this was they didn't back down. And I think that there's a point in time, and right before the playoffs is a great point in time, to say we're not going to back down. It feels like the Wolves have done throughout the course of the season a lot of backing down, inconsistencies, just sort of a far too often a malaise and sort of a question about, are they really in this to win it, or are they just sort of good and they're not? Well, you know what? Last night, they didn't back down. They fought back, and then they, on the scoreboard, fought back too and came back and recorded a pretty easy win in a game in which, in the first half, they trailed by 16 points. Feisty, and I loved it.
I do think it is worth noting that the Pistons were without Cade Cunningham, their best player. So it was another classic example of, it's a shorthanded team, and they're down by like 16 points in the first half. It was just the classic trend. And then I think they cut it to like maybe 9 or 10, and then the fight happens. Isaiah Stewart got chippy and kind of bumped DiVincenzo as he was trying to stand up from the paint at one point.
Yep.
And, and then he's like, he's pointing at his jersey and stuff like Detroit. I think they're trying to throw back to the bad boys of the late 80s and the early 2000s.
Yep.
And they have it. They've tapped into some of that energy, and they are one of the surprise teams in the NBA. And it's great. And it's great for the Wolves because the Pistons being in the playoffs is going to make that pick convey. But I would say, I'm with Judd in lockstep, man. Like, I think Wolves vibes. Feisty is a great word. I'm gonna say fightful. They are fightful, to steal one of Declan and I's favorite wrestling newsletter brands. That fight, literally and figuratively, woke the Wolves up last night. And even if you notice, when DiVincenzo and Naz Reid were headed back to the tunnel with, like, DiVincenzo had blood on his jersey. He's walking through the tunnel. And I don't know if you guys saw this, but the first person to greet those guys with a hug and a high five in the tunnel was Tim Connolly.
Oh, no, I didn't see that.
Tim Connolly, I think he knows and feels what all of us do, which is, man, when this team, for whatever reason, this team does not tap into its toughest, highest energy existence on a regular enough basis. And I think he kind of knew, like, they were down by 10 points or whatever still when those guys were walking through the tunnel. But, like, this is what we need to tap into. Maybe not getting ejected every night and maybe not actual fist fights, but let's create an energy. Let's come with a toughness. Let's be highly engaged. Let's be offended that these guys are walking into our building and Malik Beasley is chirping the entire arena for the first quarter and a half.
Yep.
And then even the moment where, so Naz gets tossed and there was a foul on the play, so someone has to come in and shoot the free throws. And Detroit gets to pick who they want from the Wolves bench to shoot the free throws. So they pick Luka Garza. And the crowd goes crazy when Garza checks into the game. And Garza was, like, offended that they picked him to shoot the free throws because, like, you think I'm going to clank these? So he steps up, takes the warm-up off, dusts off his jersey, just cold-blooded sinks 2 free throws straight off the bench, standing ovation. Then they had him foul the inbounder so they could take him out of the game. But he looked over to the bench, the Pistons bench, and kind of shrugged his shoulders. Just like the whole thing. And then even at the end, like, Malik Beasley in the first hour and a half of the game is just trash talking the first row of the upper deck. Anyone within earshot.
Yep. He
He wants you to know that he is here. He's back in Minnesota. You undervalued me, and no one can guard me in this arena. And by the end of the game, when the Wolves are up by 20 points, they're all doing his little, like, hip swiveling dance and mocking him on the sideline.
Yep.
So that, like, if they could bottle, not a fight every game, but if they could bottle the toughness, the edge, the energy, the ball movement, flying up and down, and then the defense they showed in the second half, and I have another note on some of this for a future category here, they are going to be one of the hardest teams to put away in a 7-game series. But how often can they tap into that is the biggest question.
So Jim Pete said at one point, too, because the Pistons as a whole were trash talking. Like, the Pistons thought, we are going to kick your butt, literally. And Jim Pete said, the problem here is, and this is before the fight, that the Pistons think that this is an easy court to play on. And to me, the fight showed it's not. And that's incredibly important. And you know what, too? The fact that this comes, 9 games before the playoffs, that to me is incredibly important, too, because what was one of the early season problems here? It didn't feel like a team. Julius was new. Dante was new. It didn't gel at all. Conley was struggling. That has changed. So I feel like the timing of this was absolutely perfect, which is they're going to come away, and I know it sounds goofy because they're grown men, but they're going to come away with more of a gelled feeling now because of the fact that guys stood up for each other and for the fact that they did not back down. It sounds dumb. It's not. I think it works. Sorry.
Did you see the Luka Garza tweet that he tweeted out after the end of the game that Phil's referencing of the college guy? Me? The point meme where he's like holding the beer. It's like the college bro. It's me? I'm the one that's coming in this game.
What a rule too, huh? What a rule. You could pick anyone on the team. Like, that's a hysterical rule.
And doesn't that work too if it's an injury? Like, if you're, remember, like when Kobe Bryant tore his Achilles and he hobbled his way to the free throw line, and he shot the free throws, made them both, and then hobbled out the court. But if a guy can't shoot the free throws,
probably.
I think the opposing team gets to pick someone on your bench, and then you can't come back in the game. So yeah, it was a gal, because if he clanks those, then it's like the Pistons feel like they got another one up on you, because it was kind of advantage Pistons with 2 key players getting. I think the Wolves lost 2 better players than the Pistons lost their head coach, and the Wolves lost Pablo Prigioni in the ejections. But that was crazy, man. It was, and then that. Did you also see? So there was that little kid who was sitting courtside, like a 12-year-old kid and his dad. And like the fight's like spilling over into the third row of those Lexus Club seats. And some guys were kind of laughing and trying to pull their phones out, and other people looked like they were legit worried about suffocating or something. And this poor kid is kind of and they pulled him away. But the Wolves came over. Alex Rodriguez brought him a Nas Reed jersey, and another person from like the community staff came over.
Chris Finch did.
Chris Finch came over.
You checked on him too, yeah.
And I know part of it was like, let's just make sure the kid's okay. But the other part of it was, we don't want a lawsuit on our hands. Right. So
Where was
Dennis
Glenn?
Rodman kicking a photographer.
Where was Glenn Taylor? He was there.
He was right there. So DiVincenzo came over right after the melee and was like talking to Glenn. Again, blood on his jersey and stuff. So, that was fun. It was a fun night. Dex, back to you.
Yeah. So I would say the vibes are edgy for the similar reasons we just discussed. But I will say my favorite thing right now for the Wolves is what Rudy Gobert is bringing on both sides of the court. And now he's battled some back injuries right this year, but here are some of just the plus minuses for Rudy Gobert in the last 10 games he's played. Last night was a plus 18, and I believe his 25 rebounds were the most he's ever had in a Timberwolf uniform, at least. So plus 18, plus 20, a plus 34, a plus 26, 16, 16, 18. Dude had just been a monster on both ends of the floor. And then I saw in post-game yesterday, because it's obvious that even though he's been putting up good numbers, it matches the eye test too. And he was asked what's been up lately. You've battled some of these injuries. There's also been, you could still get those classic Rudy games where he can't catch a pass. But he said, my teammates are challenging me to be the best defender in the world, and that's what I think I am. As much as he is a polarizing lightning rod for criticism at times, everything flows, honestly, through the defensive side through Rudy. And if you don't have Rudy Gobert on the floor, I do not like the Wolves' chances of advancing far into the playoffs. So Rudy's play as of late, it's been the best of the season, and it's an integral piece to the Wolves making another run, hopefully, to the Western Conference Finals and beyond. Yep.
It kind of feels like Rudy's not built for the 82 anymore, like maybe he has been. He's been a machine throughout his career, but he's what is he, 32 now? Did he turn 33? He turns 33 right around like the draft this year.
A lot of miles, though.
A lot of international miles, international play. And he's been a guy he's not a guy that plays 18, 20 minutes. I mean, he gives you the 30 plus minutes, and we've talked about reducing that at some point. But to some of the impactful numbers Declan was throwing out, Rudy Gobert, when he is on the court, the Wolves' defensive net rating is 109 points per 100 possessions, which would rank them the second best defense in the league behind Oklahoma City's defense is a 107 points per 100 possessions. Mm-hmm. So even he's maybe not quite the same guy he was a year ago or 5 years ago, but this is the best version of him that we've seen probably all year, having sat for a period. He feels fresher. That was his second 20 rebound game of the year last night. He only has 3 17 or more rebound games all season. He had 13 last year. So like the rebounding rate has kind of fallen. Mm-hmm. He just doesn't seem to have the same bounce. The overall rebounding numbers have kind of fallen, and his defense isn't quite as springy as it was again. But you're seeing the best version of him at the exact right time, and that's a very good thing.
He also, I think with him in particular, he needs his teammates to, I don't know, accept him is probably not the right word, but his confidence can wane. He needs to feel like his team is playing together. And defensively, he's not wrong, but I think there's a huge difference in his mind when he feels like his teammates are propping him up. Mm-hmm. I think being galvanizing hurts him. I don't think he talks about it, but I think it hurts him. I think he wants to be accepted, and I think especially internally he does. And it feels like, again, and last night is just the perfect example. When the Wolves pull together, Gobert improves because his mindset improves.
Yep, he's very much on offense too. It's like Conley and Gobert are clicking big time right now. They weren't in the first 2 months of the season. Yeah, I think he had like 6 dunks last night. He had that hammer dunk.
Yeah.
They
And
feed off that stuff.
And he knows his hands suck. Like, he knows that. And I'm sure it hurts when, he wants to feel, I think, accepted offensively, especially. Yeah. And he did. And yes, you can tell the confidence morphs itself into great defensive games, but I think it's just as important when he feels involved offensively.
He did try that little Euro step thing in the second half where he gets a pass on the top of the key. The lane is wide open. And he's like, at first he thought, I'm going to take 2 steps and throw this down. But then the defender came in. And it's always funny to watch, like, how does he navigate a non-dunk?
Yep.
He's only like 4 feet away, but it's going to look weird. And he winds up with some weird floater.
No question.
But yeah, I continue to say the gap between the impact that he makes going back to Utah and the narrative and the conversation surrounding him is one of the widest gaps of any player in the NBA.
Totally.
I'll jump in with my favorite Wolves thing right now. It's how low-key competitive this team has been relative to the rest of the league the last 3 months. Like going into the playoffs, people are looking at where they are in the standings and saying, boy, they might not even they might have to go through the Clippers to get to and that's all true. And they've put themselves in that spot. But the Wolves since early January, so you give them the first 2 months to figure some stuff out. They're below 500. All right, you got a bunch of new guys coming in here. A big key component out. Since early January, the Timberwolves are 4th in the NBA in net rating. So per 100 possession efficiency offense versus defense. 4th in the league behind Oklahoma City, Boston, Cleveland. Since early January, that's a 3-month sample size now. And I don't think, unless you guys disagree, like how you were playing in November and December, unless like if you're the Clippers where you didn't have Kawhi for a big chunk of the season. Okay, like this version of the Clippers maybe compares to, I think Kawhi started the season, but barring some weird injury situation, I don't really care how you played in November or December. How are you playing recently? How are you playing in the last 2 or 3 months? And the Wolves in March are 3rd in net rating in the NBA, behind only OKC and Boston. On both timelines, March and the last 3 months, they are 5th in offensive net rating and 3rd in defensive net rating. So we can sit here and say, yeah, but of course they've had some bad losses. But sometimes we forget that there's a bunch of other teams not named Oklahoma City, Boston, and Cleveland. If you take those teams off the table, everybody else in the NBA is suffering embarrassing losses or injuries for stretches, or maybe they win 5 and then lose 3 or whatever it is. So I think the Wolves, I'm not going to put them on that level with Oklahoma City, Boston, or Cleveland by any means. But I think there's a good chance that the next stack of teams, the Wolves are right there and potentially ready to make some noise. And the fact that they own Oklahoma City in some ways, and that's the only other team on this list. Yep. So they are a much more dangerous team than being talked about, I think, with 2 weeks left in the regular season.
I think where it gets a little bit frustrating or confusing is the fact that they have had so many of their clunkers against teams that they should beat, and then they rise up against these really good teams. Because like that stat to me says they've been rolling, and they have, except they hit it like a Washington or a Utah. So, but the playoffs, you're not going to face bad teams. Like, this is where I'm perplexed. I'm curious because the playoffs, you're not going to face bad teams, and I feel like their play against good clubs has been pretty damn consistent.
Yeah, but the other thing is like, even their record with the warts baked into it, they have like the 4th best record in the NBA over the last 3 months.
Right.
Like sometimes we act like there's 10 teams that are like 25-6 since January or something. It's like, no, that's not the case.
I just think what's baked in is the fact that the speed bumps shouldn't be the speed bumps. And that's where it's like when you say that, but then we go back to these, periods where they've gone through like 3 bad teams and they can't win. So the records and the consistency speak differently than the perception, because the perception has been altered by who they have lost to. But again, once you get to the playoffs, you're not going to play bad teams.
Was it Dante over the weekend that said we are our own worst enemy?
Gobert.
Yeah.
I think Gobert said that.
Dante said something like that too. Yeah. They both did. Yeah.
I've said that for 3 months.
They never credit
some
you,
credit.
you know?
I said that for
Judd.
3 months. They're stealing from Flagrant Howls. That's Sports Dad, TM.
Since the first week in January, so this is a 3-month sample now, and they've played a bunch of really good teams. They've played a full sampling of the NBA. Since the first week in January, the Wolves have the 5th most wins of any team in the NBA. Oklahoma City has 32, Boston has 29, Cleveland has 29, Denver has 27, and the Wolves have 26. So the only 2 teams in the Western Conference that have more wins than the Wolves over that stretch, Oklahoma City and Denver, the Wolves own both of them so far in the regular season and knocked Denver out of the playoffs on their own home court last year. So, like I said, could they get beat in a play-in against the Clippers and be fighting for their lives? Yes. But let's continue to not shut the door on them doing something dangerous once the playoffs start. That door is open.
I feel like against, if they play Denver again, they should be favored.
We'll get a sampling here. Is it tomorrow night?
OKC, I'd like to see them against in an actual series, but I think that the Wolves have proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that they are a bad matchup for Denver, not vice versa.
What's your favorite current Wolves?
It is. I don't know if this is an apology because at the time he was not playing well, but it is a testimony, a tribute. Mike Conley. Mike Conley again was great last night. Entering Sunday's game, he was shooting 58% from the field, 57% from 3 in 11 games and 10 starts. In the month of March, the Wolves were 8-3. They are now 9-3. He's playing 23.5 minutes per game. In February, Conley shot 41% from the field, 42% from 3 in 9 games and 9 starts. The Wolves 3-6. The point being is, I know he was hurt, and evidently that played a big role because at the age of 37, there do become questions of, are you hurt or are you just aging out of the league itself? But Mike Conley in the month of March and really as of late has been back to himself. And I was extremely hard on Mike. I thought it was fair at the time, but it's also only fair now to credit him with bouncing back and playing really, really good basketball.
You wanted him gone. You wanted him.
I was very Carlos Santana early in last season on Mike Conley.
You get that way early in seasons.
Well, old people, I don't trust them.
Patience for.
I don't trust old people.
Sometimes the old people need a little time in the morning to get going early in the season.
And he was hurt too.
Yeah, since the beginning of January. So again, 3 months of sample. He's shooting 49% from 3-point range.
Yeah, and he's been great of late.
Hit a couple big ones in that game last night. And he glues things together. And he's not going to be a 40 minutes guy. Like he's too old. He's too old for that. But they've done a nice job just finding a sweet spot between 20 and 30 minutes, depending on the game.
Yep.
And making sure that that he is healthy. It feels like whether it was stumbling into it or whether it was strategy behind the scenes, Gobert and Conley are as healthy and productive as they've been at any point this year at the exact right time. And
I feel like both of them are absolutely keys to a playoff run. So like this is what you need.
Yep. Okay, we'll get to balance this out with our least favorite current Wolves thing here in a moment. One of my favorite things is Brixworth down the street from Target Center, where you can gather with friends and fellow Wolves fans before home games. Great spot to gather an hour or two before the game and just walk down to the Target Center. And for away games, they always got the games on TV where you can also drink the signature Nas Reed Hazy IPA. They've got some of the best dry rub wings and Detroit-style pizza in town. So check them out in the North Loop. Brixworth, one of the great craft beer places in the Twin Cities. And they got the OG location down in Burnsville, too, which you can find in the South Metro. So our friends at Brixworth supporting Flagrant Howls. MSP Plumbing, Heating, and Air here as well, Judd.
Yes, and so a question I get a lot is this. It's very simple. Sports Dad, do you use the products that you talk about? Do you use the services, the companies? And I want to tell you a story because when it comes to MSP, the answer is unequivocally, absolutely yes. In fact, in the last month plus, my furnace went on the fritz. MSP to the rescue. It turned out that my water softener and heater were a little bit old, MSP to the rescue. They fixed all of those things. It comes down to trust and quality. And when it comes to MSP, I can trust them. They do a fantastic job. So the answer is yes, Sports Dad does use these folks, and these folks do outstanding work. And I want to recommend them to you. For service, call MSP at 651-615-4292 or check out their website, callmsp.com. Call at msp.com. MSP Plumbing, Heating, and Air. They do absolutely outstanding work. How do I know? Because I've used them.
All right, your least favorite current Wolves thing.
I'll go. I would hate, and we'll see what happens here. And I understand maybe when we're listening to this, we'll have some clarity or people consuming this. I would just hate that with that brawl that did take place, even though it galvanized the team at the time, that there is like some suspensions at play when you are a half game out of the play-in and you're still fighting to hopefully still, even if you are in the play-in, to be the 7th seed. My least favorite thing would be, it'd be every time this team has, even though they've been winning a ton of games, like it's been hard for them to gain ground on Golden State, even though they've had one of the best records. Like it would be a huge buzzkill if Dante was out for a couple games or if Nas was out for a couple games. We'll see what happens with it. If they want to find them, find them. You know, it's not my money. I don't care. But I would hate for them to be out for a very important situation where the Wolves could be out of the plan.
Absolutely. Well, and Ant picked up a T last night. Next T, out of game again.
He's for
That's
sure.
another one. That was a stupid T.
Once you get to the playoffs, you get a reset, and it's 7 technicals you get. But
yeah, their games are all
can
important.
he really go 7 games and not pick one up here?
And what was he doing last night, though? Again, he knows he's on this, like dude, just be quiet.
He is, it's like he knows he's right on the line here now.
Yes.
And there was a moment last night where he didn't even want to touch a bouncing basketball that was, the game was flowing and they made a basket or whatever, and he didn't want to get called for a delay of game by like touching the basketball or something. So he knows, but at the same time he can't help himself.
I know.
So I would hope they'll probably both get suspended for a game, and then you're going to be, and if it's against, I guess you could appeal, right? So could they have a fully loaded team against Denver, and then the suspensions are like for the Brooklyn or Sixers game coming up? I don't know. It felt like maybe I'm just being a homer here. Nas shook the finger, which like the initial technical, whatever, shaking the finger, and then Dante came in, and there was a little shoving.
Yeah.
I don't remember a punch specifically being thrown. It was a lot of just like grabbing of jerseys and shoving, and the Pistons were the ones. If you remember, there was like 5 Pistons players that kind of the momentum spilled everything into that front row.
Yeah. Well, as Jim Pete said on the telecast too, though, why did we need all those coaches? Like the Pistons bench cleared from their coaches. It's like we don't need. You're not going to help.
All dressed the same too. You're trying to figure out.
But I mean, like I don't need. If a player leaves the bench, it's a huge fine and suspension. Like I don't need every assistant coach, like from the back of the bench and stuff, coming out there. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think the fact too it spilled into the crowd is probably where like they're going to draw a line of. It'd be one thing if these guys were brawling a little bit at center court and you got to separate some guys, but the fact it's spilled into the crowd, now it's a safety thing. Like that's where I think
I agree with
they'll
you.
have to punish.
Well, and the
some
kid
guys.
gets crunched, which isn't good.
Yeah,
no pun intended.
I'm about to say.
No pun intended, but the kid did get crunched. I mean, the poor kid was in the front row. Now, first of all, those are nice seats too. So if the kid's afraid now, I will go.
Do you think him getting a Nas Reed jersey prevents the family from getting litigious?
Oh, no.
My knee hurts a little this morning.
No way. No. And you know what? No offense. Nas is great. But if that's me and I'm dad, my kid is getting an Ant Edwards signed jersey.
Can you sue for that? Or is there something on the ticket that says, hey...
Oh, it's a sumo risk, right?
Things could
No,
spill over.
I don't know that. I don't know you can say that. Like you can say... I do know that baseball now says... before games, if a batted ball goes into the stands, you assume risk, but you can still sue.
If a power forward goes into the stands,
you can sue. You can sue. But I mean, if I'm dad of the kid, I want a sign framed Ant jersey hanging on my wall.
Yeah, that's a good time to. You could probably ask for a lot of things because all they want is to just avoid any sort of.
Nas again. I love Nas. No offense, but I want more than that.
Yeah. What is your least favorite current Wolves thing?
It's an off-the-court thing. I believe this is the second consecutive week, but I'm going to give you this. It is the what happened at the Board of Governors meeting again last week. Adam Silver, you had your chance to say, we're going to vote on the Timberwolves thing, right? We're going to get this done with. So now you've got the last 2 games at home. You've got Glenn back with his wife courtside. You've got A-Rod there. I think Lori was there, if not last night, on Friday night. And you've got this quote on the Timberwolves on the status of a decision that's been made by arbitrators, okay? So this is now not supposed to be a fight. On the Wolves, so where that stands, according to Silver, is Glenn Taylor does have the right to appeal, and I know he is considering his various options right now. I believe he's also talking directly to A-Rod and Lori. We're on hold here and waiting for decisions among the parties. In other words, this is still not done. It should be done. I hope it's done, but I'm just so sick of this.
Did I see right last night? I was not in the arena last night. That the A-Rod, maybe even Lori, but A-Rod and Glenn were actually talking to each other by Glenn's seats before the game.
It's possible.
That maybe they're back on some
he
sort
indicated,
of speaking term.
Yeah, well, Silver said here that they might be talking again.
Yeah.
I mean, they should be.
What's the... I guess the only conversation at this point would be, unless Glenn thinks he has grounds for some sort of appeal,
or
the only other conversation would be that the initial purchase agreement called for Glenn to maintain like 20% of ownership or something. Right. And then that part of the reason they brought in Bloomberg was for some extra capital to completely buy Glenn out because it was untenable for them to all remain partners in this thing.
Now. It probably is now.
Or maybe not. Maybe they were enjoying each
other's
company.
The only discussion should be Lori and A-Rod saying to Glenn, where are the keys? I want the keys to the building, and that's that. This is done. It's supposed to be done.
So I think May is it's like a 90-day window after, right? So this thing could continue to drag out into the playoffs. I think my least favorite thing is just the continued staring at the standings. And the Wolves are just always in the 7 seed, or sometimes the 8. Maybe for a half hour they jump up to the 6, but usually not. So some good news, and I know that we've been talking about the schedule for a long time. They have feasted on the weak schedule, even though they lost a game to the Pelicans and a Pacers team that was shorthanded. But we looked at the schedule, and it was pretty much after the Oklahoma City back-to-backs and then the Lakers game. And the weak part of the schedule started with that Utah game that they lost because Ant was suspended. Then they rattled off 8 straight wins, and then they lost to the shorthanded Pacers. So there's a couple that stick in your head. Denver's a tough one tomorrow night, but you get, in the last 6 games, you get Brooklyn twice, 30 games under 500. The Sixers, injured and 30 games under 500. You get a Utah team at home that is making golf tee times. You still get a Memphis and a Milwaukee game in there. So could you go 5-2 in these last 7? Is that realistic? And the good news is on the other 2 team schedules, the Clippers and the Warriors play each other the final game of the year. So you're good. That could be great for the Wolves that, all right, one of those teams has to lose and the Wolves could take advantage when they play Utah on that same day. So I do still think the schedule, the Warriors have a gauntlet. It's at Memphis, at the Lakers, Denver, Houston, at Phoenix, who might still be desperately trying to get into the 10 seed or not, maybe. Right. San Antonio, Portland, and then the aforementioned Clippers game. The Clippers play 5 straight home games coming up here. So the schedules are going to be fascinating to keep an eye on.
Kawhi will tweak something.
It's probably likely, right?
He'll tweak something. Why did Memphis fire its coach at this point of the season?
Something's
weird deal.
Something's up there.
But I mean, if I'm the Wolves,
major rift between front office and him. There's some Ja Morant stuff.
I love that.
Yeah, they've also, I guess in Memphis, it's been a big talker. There's been a lot of heat on Taylor Jenkins for months and months. And of course, because it's Memphis, it doesn't spill over into the national purview.
Right.
But they've had a really hard time beating any quality opponent since January. They've been kind of just notching their way down the standings slowly, and there's been some strife.
Well,
so to make that move basically 2 weeks before the playoffs is pretty bold.
Yeah.
Pretty bold.
Yep, exactly.
So, all right, boys. There's your State of the Wolves Monday here on Flagrant Howls. 7 more games left. Tomorrow night, Denver is a big one. If you get that one, that could be huge. And we'll see if news comes down about suspensions. But, we got a handful more episodes this week here on your favorite Timberwolves lifestyle podcast. See you guys.